So, last time in the backtesting series, we left off with what was it? We left off A ends at D. That ended up being a losing pair, I believe. Yeah. So, overall, that is our second losing pair out of the 14 that we did so far, or our third losing pair out of the 14 that we did so far. Right now, what we've got is we've got 194 trades with around a 37.39% win rate. Overall, we are at 53R in 2016, but we're only halfway really with the amount of pairs that we did, so we're not done yet. So we're gonna continue. We're gonna do USD CAD today, and that's that. So that's USD CAD. We're gonna get started right away. Right off the bat, not really seeing anything. Not taking this trade due to pretty much sideways price action, what you could call it. So we're gonna skip out on that trade. We're gonna look towards the next trade already. Not really seeing anything. We do see a decent trade here, but I was gonna say I'm gonna wait for price of retrace, but it just went away. So this is a valid trade. It's very aggressive, but it's totally valid for me. If you want to look at it as with a liquidity sweep, you could actually see this small move down here as a liquidity sweep. All right, this ends up being our first trade, which is a winner, so that's +3. Here we go. Let's continue. We get another long position right away. That one never ends up hitting. I'm not going to zoom out here. A lot of people would zoom out, but that will only make my trades larger, and I don't want to be in a trade that takes 2 weeks. One thing, by the way, that I wanted to mention. This looks like a missed trade, by the way, and I believe that this would have been a news trade, and that's why we missed it, so that's all right. One thing that I want to mention is, what is realistic trading? Now, I've mentioned it before, and Coach Andre, a while ago, he sent his exact results in the server, and what you can see is he had 2 losing months in the past 12 months, pretty much. Maybe even 3 losing months, actually. I just want to remind you guys again that that is realistic trading. Right now it's January. January so far has been a really good month. You know, we were up, I believe, 7R so far. But we're going to have months in which it's not going to be like that. We're going to have months in which we take a bunch of losses and we get frustrated and we don't know what to do. And the key point during those months is to stick to something and not want to change things, because I see it too much in the whole trading industry. There's so many people who will go through a losing month and they'll want to change things. They'll want to ask opinions. They want to change everything about their strategy. Don't do that. There's no reason to do that. We all have losing months. They're inevitable. And even with the losing months, even with those losing months, you can still come out profitable. So don't change things up just because you've got a losing month. And that's something that I keep mentioning, but that's because it's so important to understand. See what happens here. This ends up being a break even. That's because it's so important to understand that losses are part of the game. And if there's one thing that bothers me about this industry, is that there's been this image as if whenever you take a loss, you've got to do your best to avoid it from happening again. And that's not realistic. Because if you look at the law of large numbers and probabilities, the only way something plays out is by letting it play out and not involving yourself too much in it. So anyways, so far we've got 2 trades only. We're in March. Not too many. We see one here that's a little bit aggressive, but it's totally valid. Ends up being a break-even trade. I didn't take this one because there wasn't really a strong break, but now in hindsight, I should have taken it, but I didn't really see that break. But that was a valid trade that we missed. But that's all right, because that's going to happen in real life too. We're in March so far. Let's see. And FX replay is a little bit laggy again, unfortunately, but there's nothing we can do about it. See how it keeps playing forward in those batches, like it just skips 10 candles and then it doesn't do anything. It's really annoying. By the way, I got a question from someone who asked about backtesting, and once they had profitable backtesting results, they felt like they didn't feel the need to do any more backtesting, and how I dealt with that, and how John and Andre deal with that. And it's actually fairly simple. Once you've collected a set of data, obviously backtesting is less of a priority. The only reason why you're still backtesting is to keep refreshing everything. You want to make sure that you're always collecting more, you're always getting more insight into your strategy. So the way I like to look at it is as if I'm grinding a video game, and I finish the main story. But in order to get 100% completion, I've got to keep going. I've got to keep doing the side quests, which to me, backtesting is just, I have to keep going. I've got to keep going to reach 100%. So that's kind of what I like to look at it as, is like, you're always getting better, really. So why settle for a decent amount of data when you can always collect more and get even better? That's kind of my point of view in terms of backtesting. Let's see. There's nothing here really. A lot of sideways price action, which is common when you go into the summer months. Usually around the end of July, or the end of June/July, all the way until August is fairly slow. It doesn't help that FX replay is also very slow. All right, so we finally start seeing some movement. A little choppy right now. This is not a valid long position because we are trading a reversal, and in a reversal you want to see a little bit of a stronger break of structure to the other side. So you get that, but you want to see a stronger break to the upside in that case. So let's see. Nothing there. We'll focus on what's here. This is a valid trade. The only thing that's missing is an imbalance, I believe. So it's actually not a valid trade because there's no fair value gap. Now, I didn't take this trade because it's a little bit too large for me, these trades. I usually just really focus on what's recent and what's in front of me. So those large trades, I'll tend to avoid those. Really not a lot happening on this pair, to be honest. We've only taken, 4 trades so far. Really not a lot. Usually it's a little bit higher. Looks like we might be getting a trade here, though. Ends up being our first stop loss actually on this pair. We've got, what is that? 1 win, I believe. Oh, that one should have been a win. Let me change that real quick. 1 win, and then we've got 2 break evens and 1 loss. So that's not a whole lot of trades on this pair so far. And after this pair, I want to quickly run through some data as well and show you what I meant by what is realistic trading. So I'm gonna talk about that in just a second once I finish this pair, and it looks like we might finish this relatively fast because there's not really anything going on USD CAD in the year of 2016. It's mainly just sideways price action. All right, so we're in December now. December 15th is when I always stop trading. All right, so this is when we stop trading. The pair we had was a little boring. Does that mean I'm gonna skip this pair? No, because it still might provide more positions in 2017 or 2018 or 2026, whatever. So I'm gonna keep that. Let's take a look at the overall results so far. I think we are at 200 trades. I think we just hit 200 trades, I believe. Oh, I actually forgot to add it to my strategy. Hold on, let me go back real quick. Forgot to add this session to my strategy. That's why it's not showing up. It should be named YouTube. There's a lot of people actively backtesting on here. All right, so it puts us at 199 trades, so pretty much 200 trades, 37.61% win rate. Let's see, on average, we've got, what is that, around 20. Oh, never mind. I was looking at the frequency. That's not frequency all the way down here. Somewhere down here. I actually don't know where it is right now. Anyways, we are up, let's see, 55, pretty much 55 R. And then we are at 16.5 trades a month. I do expect this to go up a little bit. I expect this to go a little bit more towards 20/30, somewhere along those lines. Right now we're a little bit low. It's because we've had a couple of slow pairs. But we're not done with 2016 yet. So anyways, I mentioned I was going to pull up some data real quick, and that's what I want to do once again. And I've done it plenty of times, and I'm going to keep doing it because there's something that I think is so important to mention that I just want to make sure you guys understand. Now, let me actually grab a good set of data. I've shown it plenty of times, this set of data. But I do want to keep hammering on it because it's so important to understand that losing is a part of it. And now a lot of people know that losing is part of it, but then once they're actively in a losing streak, they don't understand that you got to sit through it. You got to actually embrace it, because a lot of people will be losing 5 or 10 trades in a row and will try to remind themselves like, hey, I know this is part of it. But then once actually you start feeling or seeing, for example, that your account is in drawdown by 10%, you actually start behaving differently. And I want to keep reminding people that, and I've mentioned it plenty of times, all of this is 100% the exact same approach. Nothing changed. Even though there's been 2 months here of losses, and then pretty much the next year you make that money back, and then boom, you get a lot of the losing months. So it's around 4 months of you really not profiting that much. And within that period, this person still managed to make 600%, 600 hour gain. And nothing changed in the meantime. It's been the same strategy all along. However, so many people, they don't manage to sit through periods like this without, hopping strategies, without wanting to change even the slightest thing, maybe even deciding to not use break even anymore or whatever. And it's logical because we as humans, we're wired to think short term. So it makes sense that is what we want to do, but it's not efficient. It doesn't work, and it's not going to help us. And even if you look at an equity simulator, now I believe they did have an option for an equity simulator. There we go. If you were to run scenarios, that's not what I meant. I was going to go for a graph instead of this. Oh, now the platform's broken. Great. If you want to run an equity simulator, an actual Monte Carlo simulation. All right, so if we take a look at this Monte Carlo simulation or equity simulation, whatever you want to call it. If we zoom in a little bit here, you see, if you look at my crosshair, down here, it shows you the trade number, pretty much, how many trades you've taken. So right now we're at trade number 36, right now 133, whatever. So if I go here, pretty much here, right, where it says 615, and I want to see when I exceed my previous high, I've got to go from 615 all the way until, what is that, 678. So that is around 50 to 60 trades that I've taken in which I have not exceeded my previous high. I've not exceeded my previous highest account balance. Once again here, especially here actually, 768, you see down here, 768, all the way until trade number 825, we do not exceed that level. You got to understand that this period, that is months, 2 months maybe, of you stressing, worrying, wanting to change things. And that is you needing to sit through it and actually being able to stay level headed and don't want to change things. And only then will you make it through. But the only way that the majority of traders actually feel good about their results is if their charts look like this. They had a 99% win rate. That's the only way people actually feel confident about their trading. But that's not real trading. This is real trading. What we have over here, that's realistic, where you see these equity curves that still have massive periods of drawdown in them. And even if I do this simulation a couple of times more, you'll see, actually, let me lower the frequency a little bit. You'll see that there's plenty of periods in which you're going to have a choppy month or 2 months. This is a great example, actually. You know what? This is a perfect example because trade number 148 all the way until, let's take a look, trade number pretty much, well, it's over here, 387 before you exceed your previous high. Now, so that simulation 1,000 times, and you would ask someone, what do you think about this equity curve? I bet you they would say, I love this equity curve. I would love to have an equity curve like this. And then you ask them, all right, well, are you prepared to go through periods like this? And they're like, well, that's not a profitable edge. Well, it is. This is the exact same edge, just on a lower trade scale or sample size. So that's something to keep in mind. You got to stick through it. And that's the number one thing that's so hard. And I think it stems down from a couple of things. Because it's obviously nowadays, it's very easy to always look for better, not just in terms of trading, but everything. You're always looking for the next best thing. You're unable to stick through something and make it better by actually waiting it out. So people always want to look for the next best thing. And there's also a billion strategies on YouTube that supposedly have a 95% win rate and never lose. And a lot of people fall for that. And it's crazy how people don't understand that these periods of having 100 trades in which you're not exceeding your previous high is common, is very common. So that said, I would suggest you guys to look at Andre's results. He sent them in the server. He sent all of his results from last year. Take a look at that, see what that looks like. And I don't want to say compare yourself, but do use that to give yourself realistic expectations that a profitable trader is going to have a period of drawdowns, of having a losing month, maybe 2 losing months. That's just the way that it is.